Okay, match 3. We have won the die roll, and we do want to play first. Alright, this hand is capable. We have some removal, we have a rats. We're gonna have to play this Baron more instead of cycle it, but that's okay. Let's see what our opponent decides to do. They are keeping their hand, and we are off to the races. Okay, swamp. Could be a mirror match. Just passing the turn here. See whether we have anything to disfigure. Clone by witches. Well, that does not die to disfigure. And it appears we are facing the mirror match. So what do we want to play first? Probably a creature so we can start attacking. Phyrexian Rager or Chittering Rats. I do like Chittering Rats. Let's just go ahead and do that. Generally, when you are able to make your land drops, which we are right now, we have another Bojuka Bog in hand. You'd rather Rats than Rager first, just in case your opponent is looking for lands. You can help keep them from developing their hand. Alright, and our opponent has a Rats of their own. Okay. Call by Witches can do an interesting trick where they block and then they deal a damage, and we deal a damage to them, and that way their 1/3 can trade with a 2/2 at the cost of 1 life to them. I'm okay with trading with either of their creatures right now because we don't have Grey Merchants in hand. And just in case they do, I want to be willing to get Devotion off the table. Okay. I'm going to play a Rager first. If I draw an untapped land, I'm going to play it and disfigure a rat. Most likely. If I don't, I'll just play my Bojuka Bog and pass. Alright, there we go. Let's just go ahead and get rid of this rat now. We won't have to worry about it attacking us. And our opponent's going to deal a damage to us, so we deal a damage back to them. They appear to want to race. So that indicates that they probably do have a Grey Merchant in hand. Either that or just a very good hand. This Pestilence doesn't look so good when our opponent has the largest toughness creature, but I think we're going to go for it anyway. I don't really want to play Pestilence right here and tap out. So I think I'm going to Oubliette Coon by Witches so that they're unable to trade with either of our creatures. And then we'll have lots of devotion for the Grey Merchant of our own that's coming down next turn. Alright, our opponent still wants to race, which is pretty incredible given the fact that we have 2 creatures on the board and they have none. But apparently it's worth it for each of us to lose 1 life right now. I'm going to attack. I'm going to play my Bojuka Bog after combat in case they have a removal spell, which I think that they do. Probably a Tendrils of Corruption. Okay, there's a Disfigure. Opponent takes 2. We get rid of their rats and their Disfigure. And now we have Grey Merchant for 5 set up next turn. Or we could play Pestilence and add even more black devotion to the board. Alright, there's their Grey Merchant. That's going to drain us. And we draw a Grey Merchant of our own. Excellent. Alright, I'm going to play this Pestilence first. If our opponent has discard main deck, we could be in trouble. But if not, getting the extra 2 devotion on the board before we drop 2 Grey Merchants is going to be pretty backbreaking, because we're going to do it for 7 and then for 9. And that will kill our opponent unless they have some sort of life gain by removing our black devotion. Or otherwise. Excellent. We just drew another Grey Merchant like pros. Our opponent's hand would have to be very specific to be able to get out of this. They Victim of Night the Rager, because they can't Victim of Night the Grey Merchant, since it's a zombie. And they'll Tendrils the Grey Merchant as well. Okay, that's fine. So they're going to gain some more life. Our Grey Merchant's going to drain for a measly 4. If our opponent draws a removal spell, like a Tendrils, they might actually kill their own creature to get rid of my Pestilence, but we'll wait and see what they do. They're on 0 cards in hand at the moment. I know they're going to be attacking for 2. Okay. Okay, Unearth. So we have a Chittering Rats and a Rager. But if we do that, we won't be able to play a Grey Merchant. So I think I'm actually going to wait on that. I know if I did on Rager and drew exactly an untapped land, I'd be okay, but I don't want to count on that. I think I'm just going to play Gray Merchant, play Gray Merchant. Oh, they have another Tendrils. That was a good draw for them. So I drained for quote-unquote only 4 again. So double Tendrils of Corruption is pretty good against triple Gray Merchant. It's one way to stay alive in the face of all that life drain. They played a land. Once again, Chittering Rats in this matchup means you can't pretend to have cards that you don't have. So I'm going to start by unearthing a Rager. And I can either Chainer's Edict or Phyrexian Rager. I think I'm going to Phyrexian Rager. I want to have as many creatures on the battlefield as possible. If I had just Chainer's Edict there, I would only have 1 creature on the battlefield on my side and none on my opponent's side. So 1 removal spell would kill my Pestilence. As it is now, they need 2 removal spells, or a Pestilence of their own, to wipe my board. Next turn, I get to drain for 8 and attack for 4, so our opponent needs to draw something very quickly. Sign in Blood, okay. Let's see what they can follow that up with. They drew 1 land and 1 Gray Merchant. So we've had a ton of Gray Merchants this game. What can I do? I can't flash back my edicts quite yet. I need 1 more land for that. I think I'm just going to play Gray Merchant and pass. Although, I want to get my opponent's Gray Merchant off the table. I'm going to do this. I'm going to attack. I'm going to let my opponent block. I'm going to Pestilence for 2 to wipe the board, and then I'm going to play Kuambaj Witches. That cost me 2 creatures to get rid of my 1 Gray Merchant, but it also let me shoot my opponent for some damage in the process and get rid of their Gray Merchant. I still have plenty of devotion to Gary, so since I'm ahead on this damage race, I'm actually behind on life right now, but because of my Gray Merchant, I'm ahead on the damage race. So I'm going to use Pestilence for 2. I get to attack. And I'm going to Pestilence for 2 on their turn. This turns on their Disfigures, but it also lets me remove any 2 toughness creatures they might draw and play. And our opponent concedes, because in the Battle of the Gray Merchants, we drew 3 and they drew 2. We also had an Oubliette and a Pestilence, which was a very, very big deal, but the 3 Gray Merchants didn't hurt either. Alright, for the mirror match, this is very much a control matchup. So I want some combination of Duress, Wrenchmind, and Font of Return. Maybe even a Pestilence. Kuambaj Witches is going to have no targets in their deck, unless they're an odd build with Liliana Spectre or similar. Disfigure is still pretty good. Tendrils is good. Victim gets worse against Anglers and Gray Merchants. I think I'm going to grab 2 Duress, 2 Font of Return, and 1 Wrenchmind for a nice little package there. Alright, game number 2. Our opponent's on the play this time. We have the most important cards in the matchup, which are the 3-drop creatures. We have 3 of them, and the mana to cast them with, so this looks absolutely great. Our opponent leads with a Swamp, and they have a Duress of their own. Chainer's Edict is going to go to the bin, where we can flash it back later. And they're going to know what creatures we have coming. Let's see what we draw. A Pestilence. Okay. I think I'm just going to play this Baron Moore tapped and go. I can't afford to cycle it. Go ahead and pop out of the graveyard so it doesn't keep popping back and in. And they brought in their Wrenchmind as well. My lands are important. My 3-drop creatures are also very important. I'm definitely discarding Pestilence. I think I can afford to get rid of 1 land. I have some turns to do it. And these creatures are just so good I don't want to discard them. The Ragers draws cards. The Chittering Rats is very valuable. That's the kind of hand that we would like to start off with, is Duress and a Wrenchmind, which is why we boarded them in. Okay, no more Wrenchmind, please. You can Duress me all you want this turn. We drew a land, which is very good for us. Okay. They have a Chittering Rats, so they're doing a great job of disrupting our hand. We've cast no spells and we're already down to 3 cards in hand, or it's about to be 2 cards in hand on turn 3. So we're going to Chittering Rats our opponent back. We could also Phyrexian Rager, but we can already cast both of them, so I'd rather disrupt our opponent than draw cards just yet. Our opponent still makes their land drop. has a Rager of their own. Okay. And we need to draw some good cards now. A Wrench Mine would be great here to nab our opponent's last 2 cards. Font of Return. Well, if our opponent doesn't run us over, that's going to be a very good card because we're going to be trading off our 3 drops. Okay. Our opponent did not want to attack, which indicates that they have a Gray Merchant. They want to save their devotion up. There's a Gray Merchant. They drain us for 5. We need to draw Gray Merchants of our own, but we also need lands to cast them. Our opponents are still not attacking, which indicates that maybe they have a second Gray Merchant in hand, in which case I don't see how we're going to win this game. Alright, Rager or Sign in Blood. I don't think I can afford to Sign in Blood. Even if I hit an untapped land into Font of Return, that's a pretty bad setup for me. I need to get another creature on the field. Okay. I drew a little hand, which is nice. Next turn, if I could go Sign in Blood into another 3-drop, then I might be okay. Our opponent is deciding what to do, which means they probably have a removal spell. In which case, I don't want to double block Gray Merchant. I could have potentially triple block it to make sure it dies. But double blocking it could lead to a blowout too easily. So I can triple block Gray Merchant, but that leads to only one of our creatures dying under a lot of circumstances. And I really want my creatures to die so I can get them back with Font of Return. This is a weird block. It indicates I don't have a Gray Merchant in hand because I'm throwing away a 2 toughness or a 2 devotion creature instead of a 1 devotion creature. I could be blocking with both my Ragers, but I don't really care if my opponent knows that I'm trying to recur it. I just want to recur it. Our opponent's deciding what to do. I don't really know what could be so difficult right now. Disfigure is pretty straightforward. They kill the one that's not. Oh, Guess Verdict. Okay. We'll get rid of this one right here to make sure all the creatures still trade. Our opponent was trying to decide whether they should do that before or after blocks. Gray Merchant. Okay, we'll Sign in Blood ourselves first. Hope to draw land. A Duress. That's pretty bad at this stage in the game. We hope to draw it earlier before our opponent had played Duress and Wrench Mine and their Guess Verdict. There's probably not going to be an opportunity to play that for the rest of the game now. We play our Font of Return, which can get back 3 creatures. Our opponent's on 0 cards, so if they don't draw anything, they'll have to take 4 turns to kill us, but any additional creatures will be very bad for us right now because we don't have removal spells. They cycle a Barrenmoor to try to find something else. And a Duress. Okay, well they're probably going to take our Font of Return because our Duress is so bad right now. But we don't really need the second Font of Return. If we have time to use the first one and play creatures again, we're going to be okay. Alright, Chainer's Edict. That was excellent. The question is, do we just Chainers? Or if we Chainers, we can't do anything else is the problem. Or do we Phyrexian Rager and try to Mise and hit a land? If we Phyrexian Rager and we miss, we go down to 5 life. We don't block, we go down to 3, and then we die to a Gray Merchant. We come pretty close to dying if they draw a Pestilence. I think I'm far enough behind that I still need to do that, though. So I missed land. That's the first part of me losing. The second part is them drawing a Gray Merchant. So let's see if they did it. I'm going to take the damage. And let's see if they kill us. Nope, they just play a land. Okay. So I can get back my creatures, but I can't afford to do that right now. I need to get rid of this Gray Merchant, so I stop taking 2 a turn. We're actually in a pretty good position here if we draw land and we can start gaining life with Gray Merchant. We definitely don't want to be at 2 life or 1 life because then we die to our opponent's Sign in Bloods, which you can use as burn spells, which is pretty neat. We should know what our opponent's up to at all times because we have a Duress in hand, so they can't afford to keep spells in hand. Also, we have Chittering Rats in our deck, so they can't afford to keep spells in hand. So hopefully they'll do everything main phase. Hopefully that won't involve killing us. They could have a Gray Merchant right now, and they're trying to decide whether they need to wait on it or not. Alright, there's Phyrexian. Oh, there's a 5th land for Gray Merchant. There's Phyrexian Ranger attacking. I should have waited to play my land, because that indicated that I was going to get to play my Gray Merchants this turn. They might have waited till after combat if I hadn't have done that. We're at a much more comfortable life total here, and with a Font of Return on the field, I think we can't possibly lose. But our opponent could have a good sequence of draws that could get them back into this game. A Font of Return of their own would be pretty good. Alright, they have a Chainer's Edict, so we have to remember that they can flash that back. They have the mana already to do so. Okay, we have 2 Chainer's Edicts of our own. We're 1 land away from. Okay, I'm going to pass the turn. I'm going to plan on disfiguring something if our opponent plays it and cracking this Font of Return to get back 3 creatures. I have my choice of 3 Ragers, 1 Gray Merchant, and 1 Chittering Rats. I'll probably take 2 Ragers and a Gray Merchant. Although, with our opponent having a... Yeah, I'm going to grab 1 Chittering Rats to force them to play whatever they want to play. If they try to get cute and leave a land in hand, they're going to be definitely devastated by this. Alright, and they are putting a card back on top, which is pretty sweet for us. I could have also duressed there, but if it was a creature, say a Gray Merchant, then that wouldn't have helped us very much. Alright, let's see what our opponent has. They might actually play it this time, being more mindful of having Chittering Rats. Now we're at 4 life, but I still feel like we can't possibly lose. Since we have 2 Gray Merchants in hand, we need to resolve one of those soon so that we don't die to like a Pestilence off the top from our opponent. If they had a Pestilence in hand and 1 land on the battlefield, they could kill us. Alright, they're just going to flashback Chainer's Edict for now. We'll keep the higher devotion creature. They have no more Chainers in the yard. We still have 2. Alright. I'm going to duress them. I know it might miss, but... Oh wow, I didn't miss. They had a Chainers. Excellent. I'm surprised that duress ended up getting any value, especially given our opponent knew about it. Alright, we have 2 creatures on the board. To our opponent's none. We're a little behind in life. Our opponent can flash back an Edict, but we have another Gray Merchant. 2 Chainers in the yard, a Chainer's in hand, a Disfigure in hand. So I feel like we're pretty far ahead right now. Go ahead and attack. Take our opponent down to 9. Tendrils of Corruption, okay. Going to get to gain some life. I'm not going to save this other Gray Merchant. I'm just going to play it out so I can start attacking right now. Let's see if they flashback Chainer's Edict now, or if they drew something else they want to do. Alright, there's the flashback Chainer's Edict. Rats are down. Ooh, Chittering Rats, perfect. So we get to nab the opponent's card in hand that they left there since they were busy flashing back Chainer's Edict. And we have our opponent on a 3-turn clock now. Oubliette. Okay. There's no way to get rid of that, unfortunately. Our 3-turn clock has become a 6-turn clock, which is not nearly as good. And we're stuck on all removal, which is good if our opponent plays creatures, but bad if they play removal spells of their own. Sign in Blood, that's fine, since they're at such a low life total. Chittering Rats. Okay. We'll get rid of that so we can keep on attacking. Put a card back on top. There's a very small argument in favor of just playing this Chainer's Edict targeting our opponent for no value, so that another Rats we could disfigure and not have to put a card back on top, but they've already played 2 Rats, and there's a lot of reasons why we want to leave the Edict in hand. And they have an Edict. Okay. So we have 1, 2 edicts in the yard and 1 in hand. They have 2 edicts in the yard. Right? No, they have 1 in the yard. Okay. Alright, so we just both have removal for days. Our opponent has 2 permanent devotion, but they're only at 6 life. And we'll see who draws creatures first. We're both on 9 lands. Sign in Blood, excellent. Gurmag Angler, perfect. Okay, so we'll leave up both of our spells. I don't mind making it obvious what we have in hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now our opponent's on a very fast clock if they don't draw. Well, I guess, I'm sorry. They've already drawn quote-unquote removal because they have a Chainer's Edict in their yard. But they're going to have to use it. And we still have 1 Gurmag Angler waiting somewhere. Okay. So now our opponent is on no Chainer's Edicts in the yard. To R2. We're at a virtual 19 life with this Tendrils of Corruption if it resolves. Read the Bones. I guess Sign in Bloods, 4 Sign in Bloods just isn't enough. That's one of their control sideboard cards, is Read the Bones, which I think is perfectly valid. Kind of like Wrench Mind, in that it generates card advantage. Corrupt Us. Oh god. We're dead. That's 10. Oh my. Well, we lost game 2, even though I felt like we could never lose. I didn't realize our opponent had Corrupt in their deck, or potentially their sideboard. Okay, well that's good to know. Got to keep that in mind. For sideboarding, is there anything we want to do? We might want to bring in a Pestilence over Duress. No, I think I like it exactly like it is right now. Okay, let's submit and see how game 3 goes. Alright, game 3 of the mirror match. We get to play first. Our hand is bad, but we have a Duress. We can cycle this on Earth and then play an early Angler, so I think it's good enough. We need to draw both lands and spells though, so that's not really a great recipe for success. Our opponent keeps 7, and we get to see what those 7 are right now. Alright, so they have 1 target for Duress and a very good hand, with most important cards in the deck, the 3 drops, and lands to cast them. And we'll pass the turn. See whether our opponent cycles that Baron Moor or plays it. Okay, they're probably planning on cycling that turn 1. I don't want to play my tap land right now. I'd rather be able to cycle this on Earth. Also, it's good if I can hold this Bojuka Bog as long as possible, because it's possible our opponent also has some recursion spells to get their creatures back from their graveyard. Chainer's Edict. Alright, we'll Sign in Blood ourselves. See what we can draw. Well, we'll have to play this Bojuka Bog now, because I'm not going to miss a land drop. Our opponent cycles their Baron Moor. And we pass the turn. Now we're going to get hit by either a Phyrexian Rager or Chittering Rats. Probably a Chittering Rats here. And then we get to take our turn. Alright. So we're going to go ahead and play an Edict now. And hold up Disfigure for the next 3-drop that they play. And just keep on blowing through our graveyard, or blowing through our hand so that our graveyard gets full for this Gurmag Angler. I would like to be able to play the Angler without getting rid of Chainer's Edict. Our opponent's probably going to get rid of our Font of Return here, even though it's not very good at the moment. It's good for a long game, which is what this looks like it's going to be. Yep, there goes the Font of Return. Luckily, we do have another one, so hopefully our opponent, or hopefully we draw it at some point. Get rid of this Phyrexian Rager. Okay. We'll just go ahead and play Gurmag Angler. Pass the turn. And if our opponent happens to not have removal for it, we'll be in very good shape, but they probably have at least a Chainer's Edict at this point. Grey Merchant. Wow, so our opponent's not removing the Angler, either because they can't or because they don't want to yet. That's very, very good for us. We'll Sign in Blood ourselves. Chainer's Edict away this Grey Merchant. Keep our opponent off of Devotion. Don't let them chump block even if they want to. And we will attack. If our opponent didn't have removal and just keeps on not drawing removal, we're going to win this game. That's for sure. They're not going to be able to assemble enough creatures to double or triple block this in really any universe. Tendrils of Corruption. Okay. That gains them the life back as well. Cycle that away. Chittering Rats. Well, I could play the Rager first to try to hit a land and also play the Rats. I think I'm going to do that. I think our opponent will still have cards in hand later. This is taking a little bit of a gamble that it's turning our Rats off from being useful, but I really want to play 2 spells this turn. And I did not get a chance to. Oh well, maybe I'll get a chance to play 2 spells next turn. I draw a land, or Phyrexian Rager draws me a land. Grey Merchant, okay. Chainer's Edict. Alright, we'll start off with that. We'll attack. And then we'll find out whether our opponent has a removal spell that they can cast, because they'll definitely cast it in response to the Rats, to avoid having to redraw it. And it looks like we did get greedy with the Chittering Rats, and we should have played it a turn before. Because as it is now, we didn't get a chance to actually make them put a card back on top of their library, didn't make them skip a draw step. Which could end up being enough to lose us the game. I'm completely fine with calling that a problem. The thing is, I was already losing, so I really wanted to try to play 2 spells and hit that swamp with a Rager. I'm not saying that makes it the right choice, but I think I was far enough behind that I should have gone for it there, even though it didn't end up working. I'm not going to trade just yet. I have a Grey Merchant in hand. I'd rather have that Devotion on the field. They have a Grey Merchant of their own. Okay. They drain us for 3, but we're going to drain them for 4. Oubliette. Alright. Well, this is really awkward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to need to flashback Chainer's Edicts. I have 3 in the yard, and I'm just going to keep on doing this every single turn. I know that I die to Corrupt this way, but it uses my mana better, and I'm just going to wait till I draw another land. And that way I can play Oubliette into Grey Merchant, which gains me a lot more life, and is a lot more flexible with my mana. If I just play 1 spell a turn, like I only Grey Merchant or I only Oubliette there, then that's not nearly as powerful, and it doesn't help me get back into this game. Right now, I can let the Grey Merchant hit me, and I don't die to a Grey Merchant trigger. I wouldn't even try to die to Grey Merchant plus Sign in Blood. The only thing that kills me right now is Corrupt. I also don't want to double block Grey Merchant in case of a removal spell. If they just have a simple Victim of Night, that would be very bad to double block, so I'm going to let the Grey Merchant through. Chittering Rats. Okay. That's not awful for us. Do I need to pull the trigger in Grey Merchant right now to get out of Corrupt range? I don't think so. It doesn't even really get us that far out of Corrupt range. Because I have 2 Chainer's Edicts, I'm just going to do this again, let them get rid of a Rats. And they have to play another creature next turn to protect their Grey Merchant. Yet again. Another Grey Merchant. Okay. If I draw a Swamp here, I'm doing fine, because I get to Oubliette 1 Grey Merchant and then play one of my own. I still have a Chainer's Edict in the yard. Our opponent's on 0 cards in hand, so okay, they're not attacking, so I don't need to worry about double blocking. Alright, I'll start off with Phyrexian Rager, because I'm planning on Oublietting this turn. A land would have also let me Grey Merchant this turn. Okay. I can't have the opponent draw a Grey Merchant or a Corrupt, or a Sign in Blood. So I'm dead to a lot of things because I keep on not drawing my 8th land to be able to play multiple spells a turn. But if my opponent can't kill us, that's pretty good. Alright, Font of Return into Gray Merchant. Are we going to get there? Yes, we are. Beautiful. We go all the way up to 10. Land plus Corrupt kills us. So we need to trade off this Gray Merchant and get it back with Font of Return and gain life as quickly as possible. Our opponent signs in blood. I want to cycle this Baronmoor, get back my Angler, and it rats. And whatever our opponent blocks this turn, then replay Angler. Tendrils. Oh, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. I'll start by cycling this Baronmoor because I don't think there's any world in which I play it. I'm not going to get greedy. I don't believe, and play a Rager first. Alright, our opponent can't kill their own creature in response unless they also have their tendrils. Okay, perfect. So we're out of Corrupt range. We've got massive board control. We have a Rager in hand to draw a card. We have Font of Return to redraw an Angler. Alright, Victim of Night, that's fine. Opponent's on a 3-turn clock. Another Victim of Night? Okay, they're on a 5-turn clock, but they have 0 cards in hand. No Chainer's Edicts in the yard. They're going to have to draw very well to get out of this. They could just draw Running Corrupt, like, I guess 2 in a row would be bad. Alright, they have enough mana to flash that back. So between 3 cards, they managed to wrath our board. But that's why Font of Return is ridiculously good. We're still in a perfectly fine spot here. Alright, what are we getting back? Angler, because I can play it for 1 mana. And then Gray Merchant, because it gains me life. And then a Rager, I think. Beautiful. So I'll start with Angler. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This kills them the fastest, is why I'm doing it this way. They play a land. And they pass. And another Angler, beautiful. So, how do I want to do this? Probably Angler plus Merchant, just drain for a ton of life. Beautiful. And I think we have won game 3. Excellent. Our opponent plays a land and scoops it up. Alright, we won the mirror match, despite not knowing about Corrupt in game 2, on the back of the very powerful Font of Return. So I think I like it more than Grim Harvest that we saw from our previous opponent. I think I'm going to keep it as my sideboard card of choice for recurring creatures and control matchups. Alright, that was a tense one. Very glad to be 3-0 at this point, and we are on to match 4.